Good morning, traders. I am Emily Bonney, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Tuesday, October 15th. Investors continue to digest earnings today and await key economic data. Yesterday, markets finished at fresh record levels. The Dow gained 201 points, or nearly 0.5%, to end at 43,065 points, above the 43,000 mark for the first time. The S&P 500 added 44 points, or more than 0.75%, to close at 5,859 points. The Nasdaq advanced 159 points, or 0.87%. Bill, let's get into today's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Hi, yes, good morning, Emily. I'm watching the S&Ps. The S&Ps are flat. We're up 0.01%. We had a big day yesterday. Today, it's about the earnings action this morning. So we're seeing, some divergences between, various companies that released. So we're essentially flat on the S&Ps, because of the earnings. Bank of America, Citibank, Johnson & Johnson, PNC, they all released earnings this morning and more. But I think, one of the big things happening today is really with oil, because we're seeing oil really sell off this morning. Israel indicated that they're going to likely stick to military targets. So, and that retaliatory strike is expected soon. And by sticking to military targets, it really lowers the aspect of a broadening war. So, that's actually positive. And that's really why you're seeing oil sell off this morning. Boeing shares of Boeing are up higher. They're up over 1%. They reached a line of credit with some of the banks. That's positive. NYT, New York Times, they're sending, they're talking to these guys, Perplexity.ai, which is like a chat GPT type service. They're in pre-IPO phase, and they're backed by Jeff Bezos, but they were sent a cease and desist notice from New York Times today saying, hey, stop using our data. You're not paying us. You don't have the right to scrape our data. And that's what goes on with a lot of these, chat GPTs. So, that's not positive for them. WBA, Walgreens, they're set to close, around 1,000 stores, 900 to 1,000 stores. Not good for those guys. But then we're taking a look at seeing the action overseas. And, the overseas action is always interesting in the morning. We're looking at the DAX this morning. The DAX is up 57 points, or 0.29%. They had that zoo indicator, which is like a sentiment indicator out of Germany. It rose to 13.1% from October, which is higher than the 3.6 in September, and they're expecting stable inflation rates, and they're expecting the ECB to cut interest rates Thursday at their meeting. So, that's all positive. That's why you're seeing some gains in the DAX. The FTSE, on the other hand, the FTSE's down 33 points, or about 0.4%. The weakness there is really due to the basic resources, basic materials, and oil trading lower. Remember, that's a very heavy commodity heavy related index. The CAC is down about 60 points, or 0.78%. The weakness is there is due to, energy stocks and luxury stocks are really weighing on those indexes. Then we're looking last night in Asia. We're starting off with the Nikkei. The Nikkei jumped 304 points at 0.77%. Listen, those equity markets in Japan continue to benefit from the weakening, yen. The Japanese officials are out there. They're talking, and staying cautious on the topic of raising interest rates. And you look at the flip side, the Fed is actually cutting interest rates. So that's creating a squeeze there for their equity markets, because it's making their goods actually cheaper. Why they refrain from, becoming more normalized in their interest rates, and the Fed is continuing to lower interest rates. That benefits Japanese equities. So, not surprised to see that those equities, tick higher again last night. Then we got China and Hong Kong. Both of those markets fell. You're looking at the Hang Seng Index that dropped 3.67%, and the Shanghai Index dropped 2.53%. The narrative here is the realization of the details of those China stimulus program. They might not be released until after the U.S. election, because China's not quite sure which way to go, and they don't know who's going to be elected president, just like we don't know. And then you look at the Chinese exports, which grew the least in 5 months in September, and imports were sluggish. So, if they don't, while we wait on the details of that stimulus program, just keep in mind, you might not hear about the details until November. So that's kind of cautionary, and that's what's causing Hong Kong and Shanghai to pull back a little bit, because the market really wants to hear those details on their stimulus program, additional details on that stimulus program. Then we got to keep an eye on oil this morning, because oil is down like 4%. You got WTI at $70.75, and you got Brent at $74.45. I mean, hey, what can I say? The news reports indicate Israel is reconsidering its approach to the pending strikes against Iran. The latest reports that I read looks like Israel's going to avoid striking Iran's nuclear and energy facilities, because that would mean a more measured response, and that's going to potentially reduce the risk of an all-out war with Iran, which is positive for that area, because Iran is still talking about hitting other infrastructure, oil infrastructure of any country that helps Iran or allows Israel to use their country's airspace when Israel attacks Iran, and that's a big negative. So because they're not hitting oil facilities, that's going to be an uptick in reducing the tensions in that area. So reduced tensions is a big deal out there, and that's why we're seeing oil prices slide this morning. But that's what I have for you in terms of morning market update report, Emily.
Bill, in the beginning of your morning overview there, you did mention earnings. A number of big institutions, including financial institutions, have reported, sort of making headlines here. I'm looking at the notes, beat on higher revenue, beat on higher revenue. So let's get into earnings action. Bill, what is going on there?
Let's start off with the big one, which was Goldman Sachs, ticker GS. I mean, they beat by $1.51, and they did that on higher revenue. You look at the stock; it's up 2.73% this morning. You're talking Bank of America, ticker BAC, Boy Apple Charlie. They beat by 4 cents on higher revenue. Bank of America is up 1.98% this morning. We're talking Johnson & Johnson. They beat by 21 cents on higher revenue, but guidance is, a concern. I mean, that stock was up initially. Now that people are really looking at what they guided, I mean, the stock's down a little over 1% this morning. Then we got Citibank, ticker C as in Charlie. They beat by 21 cents, and they did that on higher revenue. You look at Citibank, it's up over 2% this morning. So that's all positive. And then we get the upcoming ones like this after the bell with JB Hunt. Their EPS is $1.44. Expected move is 5.39%. United Airlines, ticker UAL. Their EPS is at $3.10. Expected move is 6.61%. And Omnicon Group, their EPS is $1.97. Their expected move is 4.63% when they release this afternoon, Emily.
Bill, you did give us that notable beat by Citibank or Citigroup there, and that was indeed your pick of the day yesterday, up more than 2% this morning. But we will do a full check-in on that pick by the end of the show, so stay with us till then. Now we're going to get to economic events. Bill, give us a rundown of what we should be watching when it comes to economic events today.
Well, it's a little quiet on the economic front. I mean, we do have the Empire State Manufacturing Index that's coming out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. That should be a positive report. Expectations are coming in for plus 3.4% reading. In terms of Fed speak today at 11:30 a.m., we got San Francisco Fed Bank President Mary Daly. At 1:05, we're going to hear from Fed Governor Adriana Krugler, and then at 7 p.m., Atlanta Fed Bank President Raphael Bostic will be speaking. I mean, yesterday we did hear from Christopher Waller. I mean, he's a Fed governor. We also heard from Minneapolis Fed Bank President Neil Kashkari. I mean, Waller was out there saying that the latest data print on the economy was much stronger than he previously thought, and he feels that pent-up demand will likely fuel more household shopping as the Fed cuts interest rates. He feels that the Fed should proceed at a more cautionary pace after that 50 basis point cut last month. If inflation falls well below 2%, or if the job market deteriorates significantly, that might mean the Fed is behind the curve and should ease policy more quickly. But on the other hand, the stronger expected consumer demand or supply shock could push inflation up again. Kashkari was out there, a little bit different in segment. I mean, he was saying that the jobs markets remains strong, noting that the recent data showed that the rapid weakness in the market does not appear to be imminent, and thus, likely that further modest reductions in their policy rate will be appropriate in the coming quarters. So that's kind of positive, and so we'll wait to hear what the Fed Bank presidents and the Fed governors say today. But so far, we're looking for another rate cut, in November when the Fed meets again. Next meets, Emily.
And Bill, I can hear that, you're able to put these pieces of the puzzle together. You're not only looking ahead to what Fed speak we should be watching today, but you're sort of taking a data check on what they said yesterday and adding these pieces of the puzzle together in order to make informed decisions. Try to get clues on what the Fed may do next, but also clues what the market may do next. And speaking of that, you're looking at other types of data and information coming out of different sectors and segments. You're looking at things like guidance news, shareholders meetings, other catalyst calls, all using your NewsWare, breaking it down into these alerts. You're even grouping stocks together like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks, really able to get a pulse on the trading day ahead. So Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
I'm just doing a quick data check. And I look at my Dow stocks. I get 17 higher, 10 lower. I mean, there are weakness in, Chevron, obviously, and there's weakness in UNH after their earnings. But we are seeing strength in Goldman this morning and McDonald's, so that's kind of positive. But then you look at the FANG stocks, which for the most part are showing gains, with the exception of Meta, which is essentially flat. So we'll have to wait and see how this market opens up this morning. But we're looking at some of the news behind the headlines. Like Google came out last night, and apparently Google and Kairos Power are working on a nuclear power plant project as Google looks to supply its data centers with clean energy. Meta Platforms, Facebook, and Instagram were hit with a big outage yesterday. Thousands of users were complaining they could not access their content. Tesla, there was news out late last night saying that, those events last night where Google showed off its robot, apparently they were being operated and controlled remotely. So, that's another showman trick that Tesla was doing for that big event last week. We're talking Dow Jones 30 stocks, and we want to start off with Boeing because, Boeing is up 1% this morning. They continue to make moves. They just did a $10 billion. They just announced a $10 billion credit facility with a consortium of banks, which is positive. And they're also preparing a mixed shelf offering in an effort to raise $25 billion. So that really does help them out as they work off this, union strike that's going on. We're talking Chevron. Listen, that drop in oil prices, that 4% drop in oil prices was really hitting Chevron hard. That's why that stock is down 2.37% this morning. And we want to talk McDonald's, ticker MCD. McDonald's is trading higher this morning. Their gains, they did get an upgrade, a price target upgrade this morning, said to be due to accelerated use of credit cards data at their stores. Interesting. We'll see if they're able to hold on to those gains. And then we're talking guidance news. The big one was Johnson & Johnson, ticker J&J, because the stock reversed course this morning because they narrowed their guidance. They narrowed their guidance to $9.86 to $9.96. Now, the street estimate is at $9.84, but, so that's the reason why it popped it initially, but they did lower their guidance because their previous guidance was $10.10. The street probably had it right, and you look at what Johnson & Johnson's doing, $9.86 to $9.96. That's not horrible. I mean, that's why the stock's not falling apart. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Johnson & Johnson does turn higher this morning. And then we're talking shareholders meetings going on today. Schwab, ticker SCHW. They did release an earnings beat this morning, ticker SCHW. And the stock is trading higher. It's like 1% higher. I was really looking at this yesterday, as my stock of the day, because they are having their fall business update today. That event, along with the earnings, if the earnings are good, I wasn't sure about the earnings, but listen, the stock's up 9% this morning. So Charles Schwab is having a strong move. Then we got Casey Stores, ticker CASY. They're holding an analyst day today. That could be something. And then we're talking like some catalyst calls this morning. CEG, Charlie Edward Gray's Constellation Energy Group. Citibank opened up a 90-day downside catalyst watch on the stock, ticker CEG, Charlie Edward Grace. But that's what I have for you in terms of news hitting the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. It is now that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day. Bill, quite the run in October so far. What is your pick of the day today?
CFG, Citizens Financial Group, Charlie Frank Grace. Earnings are out, tomorrow morning. EPS is 79 cents. Expected move is 5.08%. Okay, let's take a look at yesterday's call volume. 1,379 versus 1,080. That's positive. It's not 2-to-1, but it's positive. And then you got to look at the open interest. 57,705 versus 41,668. Again, nice positive. And you look at the major brokers; they're raising price targets on the stock, and these guys did deliver a nice beat last quarter. So I think the same will be happen again today. I'm hoping to get in, 43.30 area, definitely under 43.50. But I'm going to say 43.30 area. That's kind of, where I feel comfortable with the stock. But that's my pick of the day. CFG, Citizens Financial Group on an earnings play. Earnings tomorrow morning. Ticker CFG, Charlie Frank Grace, 43.30, Emily.
All similar strategies that you used with yesterday's pick, we pointed out earlier in the show, was Citigroup. And in just a moment, we will do a check-in on that pick before we sign off. But before we do that, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
Blue Owl Capital, OWL, announced $3.4 billion joint venture to fund the data supply capacity. ICE, ticker ICE, NYSE, the Intercontinental Exchange. Listen, their call volume was off the charts yesterday. Call put flow ratio was very strong yesterday. Alcoa announces aluminum supply contract extension with aluminum Bahrain. Pfizer appoints Tim Buckley to the board of directors effective immediately. Coty, ticker COTY, they're warning of slowing beauty sales. They released preliminary Q1 data that was not positive. Kodiak Sciences, ticker KOD, they're going to be presented at Innovate Retina 2024 conference on Thursday. Phillips 66 PSX, the company is going to sell its 49% non-operated equity interest in Coop Mineral, which is a joint venture that they're doing with the Swiss company. They're selling for $1.24 billion. Warner Brothers are going to be launching its Max streaming services in Asian markets starting November 19th. That's all I'm seeing this morning.
Okay, Bill, before we sign off here, let's do that check-in on yesterday's pick of the day. As we mentioned, it was Citigroup. Now, as you told us during your earnings rundown, they did report earnings this morning, a beat on higher revenue. They reported a Q3 EPS of $1.51. That's 20 cents, 21 cents better than the analyst estimates out there of around $1.30. Revenue for the quarter came in at $20.32 billion versus the consensus estimate of $19.84 billion. We did point it out earlier in the show that it is up more than 2% this morning. Do I have to ask, how did your call work out?
Worked out. It looks like the stock opened up yesterday at $65.81. It fell down to 65.65. That was the low of the day, but it did hit a high of 66.43. This is an earnings trade, and I was holding. And you looked at the stock this morning, it's already hit a high of $67.60. You look at the stock now; it's trading 67.30. It was a winner. It jumped well more than 1%. It's up 2% from yesterday's close. So Citibank, ticker C, was a winner yesterday. Very happy, Emily. Very happy.
Winner all around there, Bill, and we will check in with you tomorrow about today's Citizens Financial Group pick of the day. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow and each weekday morning at NewsWare's Trade Talk when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Advani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.